Hello and welcome. This is Libby Lewis, and today we're going to be discussing the Loire Valley. The Loire Valley is also known as the Garden of France. While France grows many fruits and vegetables throughout the entire country, this area is well known for its vineyards, fruit orchards, especially cherries, artichokes, and asparagus fields. Those who have been to the Loire Valley will attest that some of France's best castles are there. These were built actually from the limestone underneath, and they were summer retreats for the French aristocracy in the 15th through 17th centuries. So very opulent, beautiful, gorgeous castles there. The Loire Valley was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2000, and it's home to over 4,000 extremely diverse wineries. The Loire Valley is really several different wine regions rolled into one, all joined by their position along the banks of the Loire River. The Loire River is the longest river in all of France. Because of this, there's an extreme amount of diversity. There are over 24 grape varietals used in the Loire Valley. The region is one of the most diverse in France, and it produces dry and sweet wines, dry and off-dry rosé wines, some of the most world-famous sparkling wines, and dry red wines. Because of this extreme diversity, there is no appellation that covers the entire region. So, for example, there is no Loire AOC, like there is a Bordeaux AOC that could have grapes from anywhere in the area and make into one wine. There is no such thing in the Loire Valley because of the diversity. However, there are 50 AOCs throughout the Loire Valley and 5 IGPs. Just a reminder, this is your pyramid for quality. So an AOC is an Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée, and that would be the highest quality of wine from that area or region. And IGP would be the next tier down. It does have a geographical distinction, but it's not going to cost as much and not be as high a quality as an AOC would be. To give you some cultural background on the Loire Valley, the Romans introduced wine to the area in the 1st century AD. So they came, planted vineyards, wine was produced. In the 100 Years' War, Joan of Arc led the French troops to an important victory here in the Loire Valley. And during the Middle Ages, those Catholic monks started to produce wine from the grapes that were planted by the Romans. This became very popular as an export with the English and the Dutch. The French aristocracy came in and took control of the vineyards and the entire area really until the French Revolution, which was in 1789. After that, phylloxera affected the vineyards and the quality. A lot of the grapevines were destroyed, etc. However, when they figured out how to fix the phylloxera invasion from these little pests, the wines from the Loire Valley regained popularity when it was actually designated an AOC, and it really has some very world-famous, very popular wines. As I mentioned before, the Loire Valley actually extends 300 miles from the Atlantic Ocean eastward towards the center of France. It is north of Bordeaux and Cognac, and it is made up of 4 subregions, starting with Pays Taillé. The next subregion is Anjou-Samar. It's actually 2 subregions kind of put together, and they combined them together. Touraine. And then as we get into the easternmost portion, we have what's called the Upper Loire. It is sometimes also called the Eastern Loire to make things more confusing. And it is made up basically of Pouilly-sur-Loire and Sancerre. Probably the most famous of all the soils is this Camérogian soil that starts up in England and runs in different veins throughout France, including the Loire Valley. This Camérogian soil is a limestone clay that really causes the wines to be high in minerality. Starting on the most western side of the Loire Valley, this borders the Atlantic Ocean. It's the Pays Nete, and it is the coolest area of Loire, maritime climate. It is kind of a light, stony topsoil with a volcanic subsoil. If you want a light-bodied, crisp, unoaked white wine, the Pays Nete is the place to go. The varietal there is a Malon de Bourgogne, which is indigenous to Burgundy, but you don't find this varietal very often in Burgundy anymore. It is locally known as Muscadet, not to be confused with Muscat. So this varietal makes up 3/4 of the vineyards in this region. So we are still in the Pays Nete subregion of the Loire Valley. Muscadet, the varietal, is the only varietal allowed in 4 of its subregions. So these are all AOCs, and they are well known throughout the region. So you might wonder how to pair a Muscadet from this area, and it would go well with oysters and fennel. If you think about that it's close to the ocean, oysters are available. These are a great combination. As we move eastward into the body of the country of France, we come up to the next subregion of the Loire Valley, which is called the Anjou-Samar. And if you take a look at this, really this is 2 subregions put together, but they combine them when they name this subregion. And as we get away from those oceanic influences, we get more sunshine, and we have a high humidity that remains in the air, which actually is wonderful for some of their dessert wines. The botrytis is able to grow and create some great wines. So, in looking at the grape varietals that they use in the Anjou-Saumur region, we have Chenin Blanc, which is the thin-skinned grape. They make both dry and sweet wines from here. Savennières is a premium appellation for 100% Chenin Blanc dry wines located on the north bank of the river, so across the river on that north bank. That white wine is well known and very famous in this region, but also they produce some wonderful reds and rosés. So let's take a look at the grape varietals that are used in the Anjou-Saumur region of the Loire Valley. They have Cabernet Franc, which in this area is known as Breton. That's unfortunate with the wine world. There's a lot of AKA, also known as, in this area. So they call Cabernet Franc Breton, and probably the most famous subregion of Anjou-Saumur would be Chenin for the Cabernet Franc. Then there's Cabernet Sauvignon, Gamay, and Malbec. But to confuse things, let's take a look. Malbec in this area is called Côte. So different names, same grape varietals. And Gruyère is indigenous to Loire. It makes a great off-dry rosé. The sparkling wine production in Saumur in particular is really, really famous worldwide and really does compete with some of the best wines from the Champagne region of France. They use the traditional method or method champenoise. It's a 17-step process for making the wines. There are some minimums here, but basically we're looking at a Chenin Blanc or a Cabernet Franc for the grape varietals. This screen here just gives you an example of how detailed wine is. These are subregions within Anjou and Saumur and what you would find in each one of these areas. As we move eastward in with Anjou-Saumur, we will change our wine and go with a Chenin Blanc. And with that, all that river fish that's in the river with a butter sauce, and those would blend well together. As you can see here, there is a Savennière from this region. Our next region within the Loire Valley is Touraine, and it is very similar in geography and climate to Anjou-Saumur. It's just further eastward into the country of France. Again, this screen here will show you the varietals that are used in the certain appellations within Touraine. So Touraine AOC would mean it covers the entire subregion of Touraine. Grapes can come from anywhere and be blended together. This allows for red, white, sparkling still, rosé, etc. So all of the wines there that you could make are found here. They do have Chenin Blanc as one of their varietals, and they also have Sauvignon Blanc. So as we move further eastward, we're seeing different varietals. Sauvignon Blanc, Cabernet Franc, and Malbec, those latter two being the reds. Within Touraine, there are two further subregions, Vouvray, AOC, and Cheverny, AOC. Both of these are very, very famous and well known. And in Vouvray, we're looking at white wines being made from Chenin Blanc. And then as we go to Cheverny, you can see Sauvignon Blanc, Sauvignon Gris, Pinot Noir, and Gamay, for the latter two being reds. Okay, so you can see on this label, this is from Touraine. It is made out of the Cabernet Franc grape, so it's going to be a red. And pairing that with pork and prunes would be very typical and indigenous in the area. Okay, and finally, as we are the furthest to the east in the Loire Valley, we come to a region called the Upper Loire. It is also unfortunately known as the Eastern Loire, so things can get very confusing. The soils in Sancerre are chalky and limestone, again that Camérogian soil coming through. And Puy-Fumé, a very famous, well-known wine, and this is a more flinty soil. Again, you will have a lot of minerality, high acidity, medium alcohol in all of the Loire Valley, but specifically here as well. This is a semi-continental climate because we've moved almost halfway into the country of France. It still gets a little bit on the sea breeze because there's no mountain barriers, and there is a large diurnal shift. So the temperatures between day and night really are very, very wide in this area. Again, probably the most famous sub-region in the Upper Loire is going to be the Puy-Fumé. As we move into the subregion Sancerre on the west bank, we look at Sauvignon Blanc. You know, if you think about it, we started out with Melon de Bourguignon, which is Muscadet in this area. Then we went to Chenin Blanc and then Chenin Blanc and bleeding into Sauvignon Blanc. And here we are all the way to Sauvignon Blanc. They do produce a small amount of Pinot Noir, but not much. And then Puy-Fumé, the east bank of the Loire River, Sauvignon Blanc is the only allowed grape, and it kind of has this smoky flavor to it, even though it's not oak aged. I thought I'd take a look at maybe doing some cheese pairing. Sometimes you don't have a full meal. And so a Puy-Fumé, a little bit on the smoky side, a hard-aged cheese such as Edam might be a really good combo with that. Puy-Fumé is going to be a little bit more expensive, but well worth the purchase.